Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description. Prologue. Where am I? Asked a blue-eyed blonde man of about 17 years old with stripes on his cheeks that resembled a fox's whiskers. Well, hello, young hero, said an old voice, turning around to see a short old man of about 70, with gray hair and purple eyes, in which instead of a pupil there were circles, like on water from a stone thrown into it. Are you awake? The old man asked with a smile. Excuse me, but who are you? Where am I? And why a hero? The guy blurted out. How did I end up here? Hee, have you completely lost your memory? Get ready, this is going to hurt a little. With these words he appeared right in front of the guy and poked him in the forehead with his index finger. What for? That's all the guy managed to ask before collapsing from the terrible pain in his head. The pain only grew with each passing second, and after a couple of minutes the guy started screaming. This went on for about 30 to 40 minutes until the guy died down. When it was all over, he tried to get up, but because of the trembling in his legs he almost fell, but the old man caught him, with an unusual speed for people his age. Be careful, was all the old man said. Are you okay? Well, you can't tell by looking at me, the guy said with relief. It feels like a herd of bulls ran over me, twice. It will pass, the old man answered, seating him at a small table. Well, do you remember who you are now? The boy closed his eyes at his words. A couple of minutes later he opened them and stared at the old man as if he had seen a ghost. Hagoromo-san, as I understand it, I died. That's right, Naruto-kun, you died protecting your friends during the battle with Kaguya. You won, but in order to defeat Kaguya, you used the seal of the death god. You were recognized as the strongest shinobi in the world, even by your friend Sasuke Uchiha, and on that day, they held a world day of remembrance for the fallen. Heh. Naruto smiled sadly, staring into his teacup. So they finally admitted it, that's good, Databeo. Can I ask a few questions before I head off to Shinigami-san's palace? You can. Naruto smiled kindly at Hagoromo. First, how did I end up here? Second, why did you summon me? Third, why did I watch the memories like some kind of movie? And where is Kurama? Well, you know the answer to the first question, you died. The answer to the second, we have an offer for you, Naruto-kun. Such offers are not refused, and I am sure it will interest you. And they will answer the third question. With these words, two figures appeared next to him out of nowhere. A man and a woman. They were dressed in very expensive-looking kimonos, the man in dark blue with silver patterns in the form of a tree, which Naruto couldn't figure out, the woman in snow white with red patterns in the form of a sakura. Meet Naruto, Shinigami, and the Abyss, Hagoromo said with a smile, seeing Naruto's face stretch. They're offering you a deal. Hello, boy, said a soft, velvety voice that warmed Naruto's heart. The Shinigami simply nodded, sitting down next to the old man. We have an offer for you that might interest you. You saved your world, which was on the brink of destruction. Are you ready to save another? The question made Naruto's brain freeze. Another world? There are other worlds. There was silence for a minute before Naruto quietly replied. Always ready, but how can I save the world if I just learned about other worlds? I don't know anything about your other world. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, Hagoromo-kun will help you. Since you agree, here's a small gift from us and Shinigami. A small ball, slightly less than 5 centimeters in diameter, flew off from each one and flew into Naruto's heart. At first, nothing happened, but as soon as Naruto decided to relax, he was racked with unbearable pain, and he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he realized that he was lying on a futon. He got up and moved the futon to the wall of a small room that had only a door and the futon itself. He walked out the door and found himself in a room that was furnished more richly. There was a small sofa, a huge cabinet with scrolls, and a table on which lay an envelope that was labeled Naruto. This is probably for me, he thought as he opened the envelope. The gist of the letter was that he needed to study all the scrolls in the cabinet before Hagoromo arrived. The time was counted by an ordinary hourglass, which he did not notice at first. Oh, this is going to be stressful, Naruto said quietly to himself. What if mass shadow cloning? Poof! 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 A couple dozen clones appeared next to him. Hooray! This will make things go faster! The blonde rejoiced and began handing out the CC to his clones. A week later, Naruto sprawled on the couch, trying to digest the mountains of information that had fallen on him. He massaged his temples, realizing that it had become a habit. The clock showed that he had less than an hour left before the Sage of the Six Paths arrived. Phew, I made it, the blonde thought happily. I need to find out where Ku went from the old man, otherwise because of this study I just can't enter my subconscious. This is not right. You did it? Well done, Hagoromo said in surprise, seeing how the last clones were restoring order. It's time for you to go, Naruto, but first I'll explain something to you. Firstly, you don't need to save the world, it has someone who should save it. Your job is to be a backup. Secondly, you will need to master the divine law of space, which is described in the scrolls. Don't ask why, they asked for it. Got it, Naruto replied, getting up from the couch. Old man, where did Kurama go? Sorry, but Kurama must stay in your old world, since he is one of the pillars of that world, he answered, looking at the guy guiltily. But he left you a gift, you will find out what it is yourself. Hagoromo smiled. After his words, Naruto remained silent for a couple of minutes, and then said a phrase that left the Sage of the Six Paths stumped. Oh, it's a pity that he's not here, now there will be no one to make fun of and talk to during training. Ahem. Hagoromo cleared his throat. It's time, Naruto. Time doesn't wait. You are right, Hagoromo-san. After this phrase he lost consciousness, and his last thought was, again, not far from Sphitozer. Consciousness came in fragments, which is why Naruto at first did not understand where and how he ended up, but after 10 minutes of continuous brain activity, the memories in his head fell into place. He smiled sadly, looking towards a small stream, and said, Well, hello new world and new problems. Standing up and stretching his stiff muscles, he headed along the stream when he smelled something. Why did I start smelling better? What happened to me? Naruto thought. Not understanding what could stink so much, he took a kunai out of his pouch and ran along the upper paths towards the unusual smell. After a few minutes of running, he stopped on a large branch and began to sniff. A few seconds later, he saw a snow-white monkey almost 4 meters tall, which surprised him very much, because it is one thing to read that the demonic beasts of silver are 1.5 to 2 times larger than an adult man, another to see with your own eyes. He smiled in anticipation, but a human would have seen more the grin of a predator who had found his prey than the smile of a 17-year-old teenager. After a couple of hours of running, he had amassed several demonic beast carcasses and, what surprised him most, a silver demonic spirit. What surprised and alarmed him most about this run was that his senses had become heightened, not like in Bijou mode or Senin mode, but not far from it. When he approached the stream with this thought to wash off the sweat, he noticed that his eyes were scarlet with a narrow pupil. Like Kurama! The thought flashed through Naruto's head, and when he began to think what to do with it, he noticed that the color of the pupil began to change to its native bright blue with a normal pupil. Wheel. We need to figure out what this is, and if possible, figure out where it came from. Naruto thought while drying himself. After 3 days, Naruto came out onto a narrow road. Road? That means there's a settlement nearby. And that means normal food and a bed, Naruto thought happily, and began to determine which way it would be better to go. Having not decided which way to go, he created 2 clones and sent them to scout, and he himself lay down on a thick branch and dozed off, having set up a signal barrier before that. A few hours later, he was awakened from his half-sleep by information from one of the clones. He grinned and ran along the upper paths towards the fortress, as the clone thought. That's quite a fortification, Naruto thought, hiding his SCC as much as possible and watching the post. Kami, what incompetence, who stands at a post like that, especially when you don't have sensors? It seems like you can easily enter this city through the gate, since there are such incompetents there. Approaching the gate, he hid his chakra as much as possible, just in case, otherwise you never know what could happen. When the guards noticed him, it was noticeable that they tensed up, which amused Naruto even more. Stop! One of the guards ordered when Naruto came within 3 meters of them. Who are you? I'm a simple traveler, the guy answered, raising his hands and showing that there was nothing in them. And I came to your city to find out if I can stay and live with you. Yes? The guard asked skeptically. Then you don't mind if we test your spiritual strength? Of course, showing the idiot smile. As Kurama once said, what do I need to do? Let's go, said the guard and went into the city. When they entered a small room, there was an old man writing something on a scroll. After explaining what needed to be done, they found out that he was currently at the gold level of the 4th star, which surprised the old man and the guard. But what surprised them most was that he had a golden soul. The old man wrote something on the scroll, gave it to the guard, telling him to give it to the head of the city, and Naruto himself was asked to stay. Yizone's POV. Arg, I'm so sick of this bureaucracy, I thought angrily, sorting through another pile of papers. I need a break urgently. At that moment there was a knock on the door. What happened there? Flashed through my mind, remembering that no one had an appointment for today. Come in, I said loudly. A guard came into the office and handed over a scroll, saying that it was from Yishu. After reading what was written on the scroll, I blinked and read it again. So a 17-year-old golden cultivator of the 4th demon star has come to us, with great growth prospects and a golden soul color, I thought tiredly. Invite him to my place, I said, massaging my temples. 10 minutes later, a 17-year-old blonde with stripes on his cheeks and bright blue eyes entered the office. He held himself calmly, as if he was not standing next to the mayor of the city. His gaze was not tense, but not relaxed. He was dressed in simple-looking, but obviously comfortable clothes. His right hand is bandaged. Why? I automatically noted this strange detail of his appearance. Hello, Naruto Namikaze. I nodded in greeting, but did not stand up, as I was older in age and position. Let's see if he knows etiquette, I thought with interest. To be honest, I did not expect that there were settlements other than Svitozer, and that someone would come to us with a desire to settle in our city. Hello, Chief, he nodded in the style of, I acknowledge your position, but I am not going to obey. My clan was destroyed, so I decided to become a traveler. After a few months of traveling I came across your city and decided to settle in Svitozer, if, of course, you do not mind. The clan was destroyed, huh? I thought sullenly. It's probably a sore subject for him. No, I don't mind you settling in Svitozer, but on the condition that you go to the Sacred Orchid Military Academy as a teacher. Let's see how he passes the sanity test. The guy was silent for a minute. I wonder how he will react to this offer? I thought, looking at him. Ahem, Naruto came out of his stupor. I apologize, Chief, but I refuse since I have just arrived in the city and do not know anything about the situation in the city itself. Besides, I am an outsider, which most likely will not please the aristocrats. I see, I answered with a smile. And he's smart, he understands that he's an outsider, even though he was allowed to settle here, I thought with satisfaction. Welcome to Svitozer. Welcome to hell. End of POV. After wandering around the market and selling all his loot, Naruto walked around the city, internally glad that no one was throwing food at him or calling him a monster. He attracted the attention of many girls, but he still didn't understand why, although when he met the gaze of one of them, she blushed sweetly and turned away. It's strange, why are they doing this? The guy wondered. Lost in thought, he didn't notice how he wandered into some forest. While he was trying to figure out what to do, he smelled women's perfume. Something needs to be done about this, the guy thought indignantly, walking towards the intensifying aroma of women's perfume. It's strange, why didn't I smell anything at the market? Or is it just my sense of smell that works so specifically? He came out into a small clearing, in the center of which sat a black-haired girl of about 16 in a meditative pose. Something's wrong. It feels like her spiritual power is crippling her. Strange. Stop! She meditates at night, and with a strange technique. Night, damage caused by a strange technique. Some kind of illness? So, who is this? The scent of perfume interrupted the smell of sweat. We need to help this fool. Coming out into the clearing, he realized that the girl had not noticed him. Putting his hands in his pockets, he began to approach closer. When there were only 10 meters left, he whistled. The next moment, the girl's eyes opened and stared at him. The first thing Naruto noticed in her eyes was uncertainty, and then fear. She jumped up, summoned a dagger out of thin air, and got into a fighting stance. All this time Naruto was looking at her with interest. Having deciphered his gaze in her own way, she asked threateningly, in her opinion, "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" Naruto gave the girl an appraising look, which made her a little embarrassed, but she didn't leave her stance. "You got into the wrong stance," the blonde said, thinking about his own. His remark made her swallow her next verbal attack. What? What do you mean wrong? Your legs should be slightly bent, and the leg opposite the hand in which you hold your knife should be slightly back. Maybe you'll come out already? He asked loudly, causing the girl to shudder and look at him in surprise. There was a rustling sound behind Naruto, after which a red-haired guy came out into the clearing. "And not Lee?" the girl asked in surprise. "What are you doing here?" "He's spying on you," Naruto muttered, but since there was silence, everyone heard him. The girl blushed, and Nyali looked indignantly at the author of the remark. "What? Did I say that out loud?" Nyali and the girl nodded silently. Naruto made a peace sign, a face palm. "Oops. Xiao Ning, get away from this guy. He might be dangerous." "No, I'm not dangerous," Naruto thought lazily. "I can only fight with a goddess and defeat her, and I met with the god of death, received a contract from him to save the world, etc. Since you already know each other, I will introduce myself, Naruto Namikaze." "Naruto Namikaze? I've never heard of such a family in Sphitozer," Yeli said doubtfully. "I am a traveler. I recently arrived in Sphitozer." "Traveler? So it's true that there are other settlements besides Sphitozer?" Xiao Ning exclaimed in surprise. "Maybe they do exist, I don't know," Naruto replied. "In all my travels, I only came across Sphitozer, so I decided to settle there." Stretching and yawning, Naruto glanced around the clearing, looked at the strange demon summoners, and headed towards the inn. He hadn't even gone 10 steps before he stopped and said without turning around, "Stop your training, or the disease will kill you." "Disease?" Xiao Ning asked with a strange expression on her face. "What disease?" "Arctic disease," Yeli said sullenly. "How did you know that Xiao Ning was sick?" "You guessed it." The guy turned towards them. "And you don't know that you're sick?" Xiao Ning just shook her head and looked at her feet, as if she had done something wrong and was now being scolded like a little child for the violation. "What does this disease do?" the girl asked quietly, but the boys heard her. Naruto looked towards Nieli. It was as if there was a silent debate going on between them about who would tell the terrible truth. The silence lasted for about a minute before the red-haired man gave in. "It destroys the walls of the vessel of the soul. At first it is not so noticeable, but the stronger you become, the more your own spiritual power damages your body. This is the price for the power that this disease takes. Sooner or later it will put you to bed, and then death. The first signs of this disease are cold feet, so cold that you can't warm them up, and the appearance of bruises on the body." These words sent shivers down the girl's spine. She had been experiencing exactly these symptoms for the past month. Her eyes began to water, and her legs became weak, so that she could barely stand on them. Noticing this, Naruto sighed sadly and walked towards the girl, but she could no longer see anything in front of her. "How problematic," the blonde muttered quietly under his breath. Approaching the girl, he said, "There is a way to cure the disease, not even one." But this did not make any impression on the girl. Then Naruto made the most terrible decision in his opinion. When their faces were a few centimeters apart, Nieli realized what the blonde was going to do, shouted, "Stop! She will kill you for this." But it was too late. Their lips had already closed, and Naruto was holding the girl by the waist so that she wouldn't fall. The kiss lasted for about half a minute before the girl's meaningful gaze returned. The next second, a loud slap was heard. From the blow, a visible red mark of Xiao Ning's small palm remained on Naruto's cheek. Well done, a good hit," the blonde said, pressing his hand to his cheek. "If you train, you can become a strong kunoichi." The girl looked at him angrily at this. After a few minutes of trying to burn the impudent blonde with her gaze, but realizing that he didn't care, she quietly asked, "For what?" "What for? Why am I holding my hand? It hurts so much." Naruto was surprised. Why did you kiss me on the lips? Xiaoninger shouted at him, causing Nieli to take a step back, warily shifting his gaze from the girl to the guy. Oh, that? So that you can come to your senses, the blonde answered frivolously. You've withdrawn into yourself so much that I'm even afraid for you. Well, I've come to my senses, what next? The girl said, calming down, crossing her arms under her chest. So, where was I? Exactly. There are 2 ways to cure you of your illness. 2? I only know one with the help of the Daoyin technique, and what is the second one? In response to his question, Naruto only raised his right bandaged hand, around which a blue film began to appear, which became brighter and thicker with each passing second. I was taught several techniques of the Mednins, the blonde replied with a grin, seeing the redhead's face stretch. This is the second method. Sit down. Where? The girl asked, still not fully recovered from the shock. Even on my lap, Naruto blurted out without thinking. The girl's face turned red from this phrase, becoming like a ripe tomato, but after a minute she simply sat down on the ground. Naruto only chuckled at this, and sat down next to her. Where does it hurt? The girl pointed to her legs, just above her ankles. Half an hour later Naruto stood up and began to stretch his muscles. The redhead had already disappeared by that time. The girl continued to sit in place, which attracted the blonde's attention. Waving his hand in front of the girl's face, and thus bringing her out of her stupor, he asked, What's wrong? And Naruto? The girl turned to him, blushing rapidly. There's another place where there's a bruise and it hurts. And where? The guy asked, not understanding where the girl was leading. Why are you so blushing? In response to his question, the girl only poked herself just below her chest. Naruto was silent for a couple of minutes, and when the meaning of the answer dawned on him, he quickly blushed. So, but for the best effect I need to touch the body where there is a bruise, he thought, and his imagination helpfully threw up a picture of the actions. Tense. Something needs to be done about this, and urgently, otherwise God knows what else she will think up. As luck would have it, he could not think of anything, which made him worry. I am the hero of 5 nations, a Jinchuriki who was able to befriend the 9-tailed demon fox, but as soon as it concerns a girl, I start to slow down. Damn it! The blonde thought at the speed of light. At this moment, he was distracted by Xiaoninger's voice. Just once, the girl said coldly and truly terribly, taking off her outerwear with a red face. Just try to tell anyone about this. I'll kill you personally. After 15 minutes of treatment, which seemed like an eternity to Xiaoninger, but a fleeting moment to Naruto, the blonde interrupted the treatment and announced that the treatment had completed the first stage. That's it, now I'll write what you need to do to make the bruises disappear completely, but you'll have to repeat today's procedure every 3 to 4 days for a month. After giving her a scroll with instructions on how to prepare a medicinal bath, he disappeared, leaving the girl alone with her thoughts. The morning was a nightmare for Naruto, his head aching as if he had decided to drink a case of sake by himself. The only time he had ever decided to drink was after hearing the news of the death of someone who had never looked at him with fear in his eyes. Sitting up on the bed, he began to disperse the chakra through the SCC to ease his hangover. It's strange, at night after the treatment I immediately went to the hotel to my room and did not drink anything. So why does it feel like I drank for 3 days, like after the death of my godfather? Naruto thought, and was immediately racked with unbearable pain in the area of the source of the chakra. What the? Was all the blonde managed to say before losing consciousness. He found himself in a small cave, 3 by 4 meters. Next to him hung a small torch, the light of which was enough to illuminate 6 to 7 meters, and beyond that there was impenetrable darkness. What the? Naruto cursed out loud, getting up from the cold stone floor. So I'm having déjà vu, and not the most pleasant one at that. Having looked around and not found anything interesting, he took a torch and went in the only possible direction. Even when you are eaten, you have 2 ways out? The blonde grinned at the simple joke, trying to relieve stress. I wonder what will be at the end of the cave. Maybe a treasure or the legacy of an ancient and powerful ruler. After half an hour of wandering, he noticed a massive steel door, and not finding anything smart, decided to open it. Not living up to the guy's expectations, it did not creak, but quietly and easily opened, as if it was lubricated every day. When the door opened completely, he realized that this was a passage into a huge room. The ceiling was not visible, as well as the opposite wall. "Is anyone alive?" he said into the void, and realized that he had done something stupid. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up the entire room, causing Naruto to go blind for a moment, but as soon as his vision returned, he realized he was in trouble. Opposite him stood a fox, the size of a truck, looking at him with gastronomic interest, baring his mouth, which Naruto himself did not like. One tail is already something. The thought flashed before he formed a Rasengan in his right hand in the hope that it would help in the fight. Seeing the Rasengan, the fox prepared to jump, but heard a strange question that left him at a loss. "Who are you and how did you end up here?" "So, what a stupid thing to say, I'm already talking to animals, I need to go to the hospital." Naruto scolded himself for being stupid, and became wary when the fox stopped growling and baring his teeth, and simply sat down, staring at the guy. "I am you." Naruto heard a muffled growl. "Sorry, I didn't expect you to come here so early. And at the same time, it's not you. Here? Why?" the blonde asked, destroying the torch with a directed burst of chakra, which the fox looked at strangely. "Do you know who I am?" asked the fox, folding his paws into a cross and resting his head on them as if he were lying down. "No, should I?" Naruto had a feeling that there would definitely be problems. Lots of problems. "Ha, and why did the lords allow you to be initiated?" "Okay, listen, I am called by different names, Guardian, Keeper, Spirit. The point is that I conduct KMB for young wanderers who appeared during the initiation. Answering your unasked question, a good part of the Lord was in you for 17 years, because of which your soul began to transform into the soul of a kitsune. Congratulations, by the way." "With what?" he asked, stunned by the information that had been dumped on him. "You are the first person whose soul has survived the first of 3 transformations." The fox grinned. "Amazing. The first transformation? I don't remember going through a transformation," Naruto muttered. "Are you sure I went through this soul transformation? And you remember your meeting with the rulers, what unbearable pain there was from the transformation?" The fox showed his grin. And then it dawned on Naruto what kind of lords the fox was talking about: Shinigami and the Abyss, the god of death and his companion. The Abyss did something then, and he was racked with unbearable pain as if his body was torn into several pieces, and then put back together, and this continued for a very long time. He then began to think that he would go crazy. But everything worked out. "Judging by your pale face, you've remembered something already," the fox muttered, but Naruto heard him perfectly. "Oh, and I'll still have to train you, it's a shame. Well, let's get started with the second transformation." After these words, Naruto was racked with unbearable pain in his chest, but unlike the first time, this time there was no such feeling as if your body was being torn into small pieces. On the contrary, hot metal was poured into your body. The transformation lasted an hour, after which the pain suddenly disappeared, and Naruto was able to breathe calmly. The second transformation has begun. Its essence is that it rebuilds the energy shell of your soul and body, so get ready for your SCH to either change dramatically or be completely destroyed. From the last phrase, it was as if a barrel of ice water had been poured on the guy. He was white as chalk, and his fingertips were trembling. "Oh yeah, I almost forgot, you have to go through the third transformation yourself, the essence of which you have to understand yourself, and believe me, when you understand the essence you will have only 2 choices to finish the transformation and destroy the soul. Soon you should have the knowledge of how to use your new powers, all because your SCS was unusable, and is now being remade, so get ready for unbearable pain for a month or so." "What should I do if my SCC is destroyed?" Naruto asked in a trembling voice. "I'll stop being a shinobi then." "Believe me, soon you will stop being a human at all, so don't worry, we'll get through it, but for now I advise you to settle in the city and not disturb the SCCH so that the percentage of reconstruction, not destruction, is higher." "Okay, that's enough talking, get out of here," the fox said loudly, which made the guy's ears pop. The next second Naruto found himself on his bed, all wet and with aching CNS. He somehow got up and started doing some warm-up exercises to loosen up his muscles. No joke, sitting in an uncomfortable position for 3 hours. When he finished, he rinsed himself off, changed his clothes and went to the market. I should get into less trouble so as not to disturb the SCCH. Naruto thought, walking along the food stalls and running into a girl. I'm sorry, I was lost in thought and didn't notice you, he said with an awkward smile and scratching the back of his head, offering his hand to his new acquaintance in this world. We meet too often, Naruto, Xiaoning replied, accepting his help. What are you doing at the alchemical market? I was just thinking about my unexpected problem and came here. But why did I come here, if it's not a secret? I came to buy everything I need for the medicine you gave me the recipe for, Xiaoning replied, embarrassed. HMIC. Do you want to keep me company? WY. I doubt that you will be able to determine the quality of the reagents for the medicine, and I will need to buy a couple of reagents for the pills. Pill? Are you an alchemist? Alchemist? No, I just know how to make a few hundreds of pills. I can make some for you too, if you need it, but the ingredients are on you. I'm short on money right now, so don't be mad. Okay, if I need your help with the pills, I'll turn to you, and as for the company, I don't mind. I'm glad. Naruto smiled back, causing Xiaoninger to blush and turn away. Where first? After walking around the market all day, Naruto returned to his room satisfied with a small supply of alchemical reagents for creating pills. Even during this unplanned walk, he noticed that Xiaoning was being followed, and since he was a shinobi, he somehow managed to restrain himself and suppress the desire to eliminate these idiots who were conducting such inept surveillance that he felt sick. Kami, the fox, said that I should refrain from using chakra, but how should I use techniques then? The blonde asked into the void, falling onto the bed. And the issue with money needs to be resolved. There is a reserve, but it will last for a month and a half at best, which means that the issue needs to be resolved very quickly. But how? Okay, the morning is wiser than the evening. After these words, the young hero of the 5 nations undressed and went to bed, checking all these few barriers on the windows and doors beforehand. At night he was awakened by a signal from the barrier on the door. Without pretending to be awake, he began to monitor his surroundings and listen to his unexpected visitors. I'm telling you it's him, said a quiet male voice. Really? Another, slightly older voice answered doubtfully. If it's not him, then the young master will finish us off. And the mayor of the city has taken an interest in this guy. It's definitely him. I saw him walking with that, who was supposed to become Mr. Shinfei's slave according to the marriage contract. The first one answered with an indescribable intonation. Naruto didn't like what he heard at all. He already wanted to simply neutralize these thieves. But judging by their conversation, they came for his soul, which meant he would simply show self-defense, with a lethal outcome for the guests. Without letting the second one say a word, he activated the sound-absorbing barrier so that no one would know about the fight in the room, and sat down on the bed in order to examine the future source of information. The guests fell silent when they realized that their target had woken up and was calmly, with uncharacteristic composure, examining them. One was a guy of average height, 18 years old, with black hair and gray eyes. The other was about 30-something, almost 6 feet tall, with chestnut hair and green eyes. Naruto's silhouette blurred, after which the brute grabbed his leg, which turned out to be a strange knife with a ring on the handle. A couple of seconds later, he lost consciousness due to the fact that the kunai blade was smeared with a strong paralyzing poison. At the same time, the blonde appeared behind the young man and simply knocked him out with a blow to the neck. And I forgot that I am the fastest shinobi, but still, you shouldn't strain the SCS so much, otherwise I feel like it will come back to haunt me in the future, the blonde said to himself. Look, I'm starting to talk to myself. It seems like I've completely lost my mind. Okay, now let's take care of the guests. When he sealed the bodies in the scroll, he involuntarily remembered how he learned the Fuin skill. Jiraiya, where are we going? Asked a 13-year-old boy dressed in an orange jumpsuit and with a bag on his back, who was not a young white-haired shinobi. There, Naruto, where I can get inspiration from my books, Jiraiya exclaimed happily. I don't get it, Naruto said quietly, looking down at his feet. You only get inspiration when you spy on Kunoichi at the hot springs, right? Exactly. We're going to the hot springs, Naruto, Jiraiya said enthusiastically. You promised to help with training. Naruto reproached the Sannin. Did you really forget? They walked in silence for a minute, after which Jiraiya sighed and said, "There is one place where I was asked to take you so that you can become stronger. These are the ruins of Uzushiogakure, because you bear the name Uzumaki, which means you can learn Fuin. But first, we need to visit the village hidden in the whirlpool. By the way, that's where we're going. We have about 3 days left, so hold on, kid." Naruto didn't respond to this, but only immersed himself in his thoughts, which the Sannin didn't even know about, and if he found out, then most likely there would be one less Jinchuriki in the world. Can I really learn Fuin Jutsu? What do you think, Ku? Naruto thought, following the Sannin. "I don't know, Naruto, I don't know." The voice of the strongest of the tailed demons answered him. "As I remember from Mito and Kushina's stories, there is a hiding place there that only someone with at least a quarter of Uzumaki blood can enter. But I don't know its exact location, so we'll have to look for it ourselves." "It's okay, it's not the first time, we'll get through it. We had a great time with the Arrow Sannin on the mountain. Remember?" The blonde thought cheerfully. "Well, yes, I think he would be shocked to know that you can easily communicate with me, and I can easily share my chakra," Kurama's voice sounded. "However, you really are an amazing child, since you were able to forgive me for attacking Konoha. Thank you for that." It sounded so quiet that Naruto had to strain to hear it. "It's not your fault, Kachan showed me her memory, so I believe you more, and besides, you were subdued by that unknown Uchiha, that's who I really want to kill." Naruto thought furiously about his last words. Then you'll have to become stronger than your father, and generally the strongest shinobi, to defeat this masked freak. "Uekuka, I'm going to sleep. Wake me up when we get to Uzushiogakure," the fox drawled and fell silent. "Okay, friend." The fox no longer heard his last words. -3 days later. Uzushiogakure ruins. "Cool, we've arrived." "What next?" asked the blonde fox. "Wander around the ruins, and I'll look for any unusual bursts of chakra." The fox answered him in a serious voice. After wandering around for half an hour, Naruto came across a strange Fuin seal in one of the large houses. "Ku, I found something, look," the guy said to himself. "I know what this seal is." The fox answered excitedly, the first time Naruto had heard him like this. "Give it some of your chakra." Okay." As soon as the blonde fed a bit of his chakra into the seal, he lost consciousness due to the information that flooded his brain. He lay there until the moment when an excited Sannin found him. Naruto, wake up already!" Jiraiya began examining him. "Chakra exhaustion? What did he do to get exhaustion?" A few hours later, Naruto opened his eyes and began to look around for bruises and injuries. But not finding any, he noticed the Sannin, who was looking at his ward with a heavy, unreadable gaze, while holding a mug of water. Arrow Sannin, is something wrong?" Naruto decided to break the silence. Naruto, I hope you now understand that you shouldn't touch any unknown Fuin, especially in the ruins of a village specializing in Fuin. Okay, I looked around the ruins and found a couple of scrolls with Fuin on blood, here you go. Fuin on blood? What do you mean? These Fuin only work if Uzumaki drops a little of his blood on them. Most often, they use such Fuin as a lock on important scrolls and documents. Okay, thanks Arrow Sannin, the guy said with a smile from ear to ear. Kami, don't call me Arrow Sannin, I am the great toad hermit Jiraiya, the white-haired man said proudly, raising his index finger to the sky. As you say, Arrow Sannin, Naruto laughed. Oh, okay, we found what we needed, now let's continue our journey and training. Yes. Thanks to that memory seal that was in that house. Without it I wouldn't have been able to learn what all Uzumaki respected and feared for, Fuinjutsu. The blonde said with a sad smile, looking at the scroll of sealing bodies. Okay, I'll deal with them later, but now I need to talk to Nyeli. No one noticed how in the darkness of the night a shadow slipped out of the hotel room window and headed towards the academy's training ground. When he arrived at the training ground, the first thing Naruto did was to set up a signal barrier around the training ground using several clones. Okay, I set the alarm, now we can find this red-haired savior of the world. Naruto muttered under his breath, moving along the upper paths of the training ground in search of Nyeli. Is your sense of smell working again? I'll have to ask the fox about my heightened senses, otherwise I wouldn't want my own senses to let me down one day. Naruto thought, walking in the direction from which the smell of people was strongest. After 10 minutes of jumping on the branches, he came across 3 guys who were preparing to sleep in the trees. Among them, he recognized the red-haired acquaintance Nieli. "Ah, Nieli, how long are we going to hunt sheephorns?" Nieli asked Lu Piao. "No, we have already accumulated enough Yaolingbi for the next stage of training," Nieli answered him. "Hello people, how are you?" the blonde greeted the guys. Everyone froze in their tracks at his words, and only Nieli, when he saw who said it, calmed down and replied. "And you, Naruto, are you okay? How are you?" "It's bearable for now." "Calm your friends down, they're kind of nervous." "Guys, meet Naruto Namikaze, he's the guy who came from another settlement. Naruto, these are my friends, Lu Piao and Du Jie," Nieli said, pointing at one and then the other. "Guys, he's with us, so don't worry, he won't give us away." "Really?" Lu Piao asked incredulously. "That's right, there's no point in me setting you up since you're Nieli's friends," Naruto reassured the distrustful one. "Actually, I have a couple of questions about Sfitozer and the Shinshin family in particular." Hearing the last, the 3 of them frowned, which Naruto didn't miss. "We can tell you about Sfitozer later, but what interested you in the Shinshin family, if it's not a secret?" Du Jie, who had been silent until then, answered. "I have a personal complaint against a certain Shinfei, which I'm afraid he may not survive." Naruto smiled in a maniac style, which sent shivers down the trio's spines. "So, will there be any answers?" They will, Nieli chuckled cheerfully. "Okay, listen. Listen, Naruto, you came from another city, right?" Lu Piao asked as they walked through the academy grounds to the building where classes for future demon summoners were held. "Well, yeah," the blonde replied, wondering why their company was attracting so much attention. "I doubt it's because of me that we're attracting so much attention, but if not because of me, then why?" Naruto began to think. "Then can you tell me what's beyond the walls of Sfitozer?" Lu Piao asked hopefully. "With such questions, ask Nieli, he knows quite a lot about the outside world, and I've only been wandering for a few months." Naruto destroyed the guy's hope and looked at Nieli. "Let's do it in the library today after class," Nieli responded to Lu Piao's silent request. So, while talking, they reached the classroom, and when they entered the classroom, everyone fell silent and looked at the company. "Just look, it's little Nieli and Co." A poisonous voice came from the crowd. "And next to them is some loser." After these words, half of the class laughed, and the other half simply smiled at this phrase. Naruto looked questioningly at Nieli, but he simply shrugged and smiled slightly. "Okay, good luck to you in your fight with the Granite of Science, and I will retreat tactically." After these words, Naruto turned towards the door and was about to leave, when a woman of 20 to 23 years old entered the classroom and shouted to the whole class. "Now everyone, sit down in your seats, Nieli and the others too. And why are you standing there like a statue? Do you need a separate invitation?" She turned to Naruto. "I don't really study here, ma'am," the blonde calmly responded to her angry tirade. As he noticed that 3 men entered the classroom, he recognized one of them. He was the one who measured Naruto's spiritual strength and soul color. Unfortunately, he doesn't know his name. The men first looked around the class, then turned their attention to Naruto and the woman. The man Naruto recognized also recognized him, smiled slightly and quietly said something to one of his companions, who only glanced at this and said, "Excuse me, are you Naruto Namikaze?" "Let's say it's me," Naruto replied, sensing trouble with his butt. "Then maybe you'll stay for the lesson to assess the quality of the training of the young generation of future defenders of Sfitozer?" the man said with a sparkle in his eyes. This statement caused a dead silence in the classroom. Only a minute later the woman exclaimed, "How can this kid judge how I will conduct the lesson? Shinshio, this kid is already a 4-star golden cultivator." The same man replied, and seeing Shinshio's astonished face, he asked again, "So, do you agree?" "Why not?" Naruto shrugged and turned to the class, looking for a place to sit. He found an empty seat next to who? That's right, Xiao Ning. When she walked towards Xiao Ning's desk, she realized that Naruto had noticed her and blushed slightly, but no one noticed. When Naruto sat down at the desk, he smiled slightly at his neighbor. At the same time, the men walked along the desks and sat down at the last desks. All this happened in dead silence. Ahem. Shinshio attracted the attention of the class. Today I want to talk about the application of symbols. For warriors and demon spiritualists, this topic is vital. The application of symbols is divided into two types: symbols used to enchant items, and symbols used for combat. The former are applied to weapons and armor. In this way, the combat capabilities of items can be greatly increased, especially if they are in the hands of a demon spiritualist. He is able to use symbols to their maximum potential, releasing much more energy than their base power. As for symbols used for combat, they are used in conjunction with symbols applied to scrolls, the activation of which, depending on the type of writing being drawn, can lead to a sudden explosion of combat power. The application of symbols is an extremely deep and mysterious knowledge. It dates back to the distant times of the Blizzard Empire. Over time, the symbols were constantly improved. However, during the Age of Darkness, the continent was under a powerful attack by demons and beasts. The pride of the city is that we have managed to preserve some of the symbols to this day. Unfortunately, these are only three categories: symbols of the blizzard, symbols of the sacred flame, and combat symbols, which are attributes of the blizzard, fire, and nature, respectively. Today, we will focus on the symbols that are applied to objects, Shinshio said in a low voice. There was a certain softness in her voice that was completely different from her usual demeanor. That's weird. I thought they would first go through all the meanings of the symbols, and only then the actual writing. Naruto thought, secretly watching Xiaoning take notes. Judging by the way Xiaoning is frowning, they haven't even studied the base. We need to figure it out, otherwise nothing is clear. The knowledge of the members of the sacred family is quite profound. The way she teaches these children is undoubtedly at the highest level, one of the elders said with a smile on his face. His name was Yixing. He was the vice principal of the Holy Orchid Institute. Not counting geniuses like Yiziyun, Xin Shui, and Xiao Ning, there are also some very promising young people in this class, another elder said with a satisfied expression. He was the Holy Orchid Academy's professor, Lu Yi. How do you like it? Yixing asked, looking at the old man in the gray robe. The man avoided answering. At this moment, Lu Yi whispered to himself. Who is this stranger? He is so indifferent to the vice principal. His status is definitely not low. I'm afraid he might even be higher than Holy Orchid Academy. Naruto began to feel half asleep, which did not escape the notice of Xiaoninger and Shinshio. When he was about to fall into half sleep, he was deafened by a scream that could be heard throughout the class. Nieli! Shinshio shouted as she headed towards the student. Did something happen? He asked. Naruto noticed that he wasn't the only one who fell asleep during this boring lesson, which made him chuckle vaguely. Shinshio saw Naruto smile slightly, thinking that he approved of her actions, and was filled with spirit. He's finished. The thought lazily flashed through Naruto's head. You're sleeping in my class. Do you already know what I'm talking about? Yes, Nieli said in a calm voice. You. Shinshio was simply speechless from the student's calm answer. He had been asleep since the beginning of the lesson, and yet he confidently said that he knew everything. Who would believe his words so easily? Shinshio smiled coldly. Since you already know everything, why don't you demonstrate this knowledge on the board? Nieli's eyes scanned the inscribed symbol, and he said, This is a low-grade sacred flame symbol. It can barely be considered a bronze symbol. With only 38 parts in its structure, it is only good for heating water. The power is too weak. Hearing Nieli's words, the entire class began to laugh. Haha, I almost died laughing. He really didn't listen to what the teacher was saying. To say that the Scarlet Sun Rays symbol has 38 parts in its structure when Shinshio said earlier that it only has 36. Someone behind Naruto said, The show is starting. Naruto said so quietly that only Xiao Ning heard him and looked at him in bewilderment, and when they met eyes, he continued, Watch and remember how to bring idiots down to earth from the heavens. His words made Xiao Ning's chest warm up and her cheeks turned slightly red. I almost cried. He actually said that this symbol is only good for boiling water. The same student who was sitting behind them laughed. Among all the students, only Xiao Ning remained calm. She fully understood that Naruto and Nieli were full of mysteries, since after Naruto's help, The pain had gone away, which meant that there was some truth in his words. At this very moment, outside the classroom, Lu Yi laughed loudly. This student is ridiculous. He actually said that the structure of the scarlet sun rays symbol has 38 parts instead of 36. And he added that the symbol is only good for boiling water. Then Lu Yi noticed that the vice principal and the gray-robed elder were not laughing. Because of this, he suddenly stopped, sucking in his stomach deeply. What's so funny? The scarlet sun rays symbol is actually made of 38 fundamental parts. Vice Principal Yixing said calmly. Given the level of the vice principal and the gray-robed elder, they were able to detect that the symbol did indeed have 2 additional elements. However, they were shocked to hear that this idea was said by an ordinary student. Was it a coincidence? For experts like these 2 elders, the scarlet sun ray symbol was really nothing more than a tool for heating water, as it was of little use in combat. Please note that the young people, Xiao Ning and her neighbor Naruto Namikaze, are not laughing at this either. Lightning flashed in the eyes of the old man in the gray robe, but he still said nothing and continued to quietly watch. Nonsense, Shinshio replied angrily. Her expression turned gloomy. As a member of the sacred family, she simply couldn't stand for someone like Niali to ruin the image of the scarlet sun ray symbol like this. Niali didn't pay any attention to the laughing students and continued. This symbol is just a part of another symbol borrowed from the 7th volume of the Book of Divine Lightning Flame. The original name of this inscription is the symbol of lightning flame explosion. It consists of 60 fundamental parts. It is considered to be slightly more difficult than your symbol. However, some smart asses decided to cut out part of the inscription, slightly changing it, thereby turning the symbol of lightning flame explosion into an indescribable S, symbol of the scarlet sun rays. In the absence of real combat capabilities, this symbol is only suitable for study for everyday purposes. Divine Lightning Flame Book, what is this? Every student in the class began to glance at each other. Nieli actually called the first-generation master of the sacred family a smartass? Shinshio was filled with rage. She didn't know about any Divine Lightning Flame book, much less its 7th volume. Ridiculous! Such a book does not exist in this world! Shinshio thought for a while, consoling herself. What is the 7th volume of the Book of Divine Lightning Flame? This is probably another one of Nieli's stupidities. And then a quiet question was heard, causing silence in the classroom. What page should I look on? Volume 7, 30 pages in reverse order. Yes, the inscription is a real headache, not to mention Fuinjutsu. You know Fuinjutsu? Nieli exclaimed in surprise as he watched the blonde man flip through the book. Do you know about the Uzumaki clan? Naruto asked without looking up from his book. I read that such a clan existed about 1,000 years ago. They created the perfect system of writing symbols, Fuinjutsu. The legend said that they could create a scroll in which you can put a living person and time will stop for him, and also that they could create explosive seals. But this clan suddenly disappeared, leaving nothing of itself. Not place, but seal. Naruto automatically corrected Nieli. Found it. As Naruto began to compare the scarlet sun ray symbol with what was in the book, the rest of the students crowded around him. It really does look like it. Yes, but in the book it's much more complicated, look. So Nieli is right? The sacred family are thieves? When the students started chatting, Shinshio looked at Nieli and then Naruto with anger in her eyes. They were saved from punishment by the bell ringing, signaling the end of classes. Madhouse, was all Xiaoning said as she began massaging her temples and, noticing Naruto smiling, asked, Why are you smiling? Well, I remembered my training at the Shinobi Academy. The blonde answered her. I often disrupted classes there simply because I was bored. Shinobi Academy? I've never heard of Shinobi. Who are they? Xiaoning asked in surprise, noticing that her classmates had started to listen in on their conversation. It's hard to say right away who a shinobi is. Basically, it's a general worker who uses chakra and knows how to use jutsu. Naruto answered, closing his eyes and throwing his head back. Yeah? I read that shinobi are a special kind of demon summoners who disappeared about 500 years ago. The scrolls said that they could use different elemental techniques, like fire, water, earth. And they could also do all sorts of amazing things, walk on walls, on water. Came the answer from the board where Nieli was standing. and also that they were something between warriors and demon summoners. Walking on walls? On water? It's all just fairy tales, Shinshue said confidently. You're telling fairy tales, Naruto said distantly, turning his gaze to Shinshue. Make sure this fairy tale doesn't turn out to be a nightmare. Oh well, I've been sitting here too long. I'll go before your Shinfai or whatever her name is comes back. After saying these words, he stood up and walked towards the exit, passing some scroll to Nieli along the way. After Naruto left. How do you like the students? Vice Principal Yixing asked the old man in the gray robe. He received a mysterious smile in response. Mr. Yixing, how about the idea of getting Nieli a job at the academy library? It would also be possible to get young Naruto a job, since he doesn't work anywhere according to my information. The old man in the gray robe said. We need to think about this, was all Yixing answered, understanding what kind of answer they wanted from him. Evening. Library of the Academy. So you are now a recognized bookworm of all Sphitozer, a voice from the passage said with a laugh. Ah, it's you, Naruto. Well, yes, I am now the head of the Academy Library, Nieli answered without reacting to the blonde's phrase. Now we are starting the second stage of developing the spiritual vessel. How did you know that I am the head? They will only announce this in class tomorrow. A professional habit to look for information on events in the area, which my godfather drilled into me for a very long time and thoughtfully, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head. Did you pass on the message? Yes. She'll be here soon, Nieli said without a hint of laughter. You can read something in the meantime. Okay, was all Nieli heard. Half an hour later, Xiaoning came to the library, not understanding why Naruto called her here. Just thinking about Naruto made her chest warm, which confused the girl. Why does my chest get warm just thinking about Naruto? I couldn't have fallen in love with that blonde guy who thinks he's better than everyone else, since he talks so condescendingly in class with those men who clearly hold an important place in Sphitozer. Xiaoning thought when she was distracted by a light jab in the back. She began to turn her body reflexively, as she had been taught in her family, to strike back at the Joker, when suddenly her hand was grabbed in an iron grip. What are you thinking about? Naruto asked as if nothing had happened, looking into her eyes, which made her feel a heat on her face. Are you tired of living? Was all Xiaoning could hiss in response. What if I killed you? At this Naruto just smiled and let her go before anyone noticed them in a compromising position. Believe me, in order to harm me in any way, you must reach at least the steel rank and learn some fighting style. Then you might have a chance to at least counter me. But for now, let's go, I'll show you something, was all he said, calling her to follow him. After 10 minutes. I don't think I need to introduce you, Naruto said calmly, trying to understand why Du Jie and Lu Piao were looking at Xiaoning like she was a wonder of the world. Hey, why are you staring at this girl like that? Because of such intense gazes, Xiaoning didn't notice how she went behind Naruto's back. No, she had often been the center of attention before, but now she didn't know what to do with these gazes. She noticed how she stood behind Naruto a few seconds after his phrase, but the strangest thing was that behind Naruto's back she felt safe, like behind a wall. Guys, really, stop embarrassing Xiaoning. Naruto? Nieli said to his friends, and then looked at Naruto. Let me guess, your next stage of training is to determine the shape and attribute of the soul vessel? Having received an agreeable nod from Nieli, he took a half step to the side and turned towards Xiaoning, continuing. Xiaoning, since you are not recommended to load the soul vessel in the next month, I will take care of your physical development. Physical development? Why? Lu Piao asked in surprise. Is there any use for demon cultivators to develop physically? Naruto only smiled at his words. Looks like a fox, flashed through Xiaoning's mind. Just as the blonde was about to answer, Nieli's voice rang out. Actually, if you don't develop your body, sooner or later spiritual energy, due to excess, can cause great harm to the body, possibly even fatal. After these words, Nieli and Naruto looked meaningfully at the only girl in their group, causing her to lower her eyes, while Lu Piao and Du Jie looked at their friends in bewilderment. Basically, Nieli is right, but I had a slightly different reason, Naruto said with a smile, defusing the situation. Okay, we've strayed from the initial topic of conversation. 3 pairs of eyes looked at him in surprise. The definition of the shape and attribute of the soul vessel, Naruto reminded them. Why? Xiao Ning said for the first time during the entire conversation. Form is to determine what kind of training is best suited. Attribute is to determine the direction of training and element. Li explained to the girl and the others. Do you want to test them through a pure crystal? Yes. Didn't they check the color of our soul realm when we entered the academy? Dujia asked, not understanding what Naruto was asking Li about. Believe me, it will be needed for something else. Li said conspiratorially. I can check the elements. Naruto said after some thought. The elements? How? When? The girl asked with interest. When you reach the silver rank, and how, I'll explain later. Naruto said. There's no point in filling your head with useless information now. If after his words the guys immediately forgot and began to listen to Li on the topic of the soul shape, then in Xiao Ning's eyes Naruto saw irritation, anger, annoyance and despair. And then the conversation of the uninvited guests surfaced before him. What an idiot I am. So she trained at night to avoid getting married to a guy from the Shinshin family. I'll have to find out more about this family. I don't like it. Oh, I don't like it. Naruto thought. Sighing, he motioned for Xiao Ninger to follow him and walked towards the library staff's break room. The girl looked at him in surprise, but still followed him. As they entered the room, Naruto made several hand seals and said softly, Fuin, barrier of silence. Sit down. He pointed to a small sofa. The conversation will be difficult. What did you just do? The girl asked, sitting down on the sofa. I used Fuin Jutsu. Naruto answered calmly and summoned tea and cookies from a spatial ring. Help yourself. Taking a cup of tea, he took a sip and stared at one point, immersed in memories. Flashback. The Fourth Shinobi World War. Naruto-kun, are you okay? A girl of his age with jet black hair and unusual eyes that had no pupil ran up to a 16-year-old blonde boy and began examining his wounds using Shozen no Jutsu. Okay, just a couple of scratches. The guy answered her, holding his side with his right hand. Exo, Akatsuki Bijus, how do we defeat this disappearing guy? This is the Manjikyu Sharingan, said the man with an eye patch covering his left eye. Why did you decide that, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked the teacher in bewilderment. Because my Sharingan has the same ability, and he has reached the Manjikyu Sharingan stage. So there are few options, but the most likely one is that you survived, Obito Uchiha. Oh, so you finally figured it out, partner, the guy in the mask answered and took it off, showing his disfigured face. I'll kill you, Kakashi, you killed Rin. Because of you, she died. It was her wish, Obito, she understood that she had become a living time bomb. Kakashi did not deny. I only fulfilled her last request. I don't care, today the plan I've been waiting for so long will finally be fulfilled. The missing Nin said happily. And at the same time you will destroy the world, said the ash-haired man. You have gone mad, you released and subdued the fox in Konoha. Because of you Minato-sensei and his wife died. This is the beginning of my revenge. Obito exclaimed. Revenge? On whom? Kakashi asked the madman irritably. Peace. I lost Rin because of you, that's why I want to use Tsukuyomi to bring her back. Obito shouted, using Kamui on Kakashi. As the Jounin and missing Nin were sucked into the vortex, Naruto spoke into the void. Nonsense. I agree. Hinata answered him, still in shock from the conversation between her teacher and the madman Uchiha. I hope Sensei can handle it, and we need to help Sasuke with Madara. Naruto said, standing up and leaning on his friend. Otherwise there will be problems. Big problems. Yes, but how? It will take us several hours to get there at an accelerated pace. And you can't with your wounds, said Hinata, supporting her friend, to which the blonde only smiled. Did I study Fuin for nothing all this time? Hiration. Naruto smiled, grabbing Hinata by the waist, and they immediately disappeared. When they found themselves in another place, they could see a fight between two monsters, mistakenly called people. I admit, you are a worthy descendant of our great clan, Uchiha Sasuke, you are worthy of me fighting at full strength. Rinnegan. Pointing at the black-haired guy, said the man in red armor, about 30 years old, With unusual eyes, the scara was light purple, and instead of a pupil there were circles, as if a stone had been thrown into water. "You've gone completely mad, Madara-san," Sasuke replied, now clearly not the last representative of the once powerful Uchiha clan. "I don't need the confession of a man who abandoned his clan for his own ambitions." "Puppy, what do you know?" Madara growled, using an unknown technique. "What the?" Madara Uchiha's body began to rapidly become covered with an unknown black substance. When it completely covered his body, white spots appeared in place of his eyes, and a terrible smile appeared in place of his mouth. The creature began to attack the Shinju tree, and Sasuke retreated to his teammates at the very beginning. "What the hell is this?" Naruto asked out loud. "I don't know." "Why is it destroying the Shinju tree?" Sasuke asked. "Look," Hinata said, pointing to the cracks that, like a web, were rapidly covering the tree. After a couple of minutes of waiting, a piece of bark fell off the tree and a woman flew out of the hole. Was all Naruto could say. "Please tell me she's a friend." "I doubt it," the black-haired man answered. Madara may have been mad, but he was certainly not a fool. "Where is he?" Naruto remembered problem number 1, to which Sasuke pointed somewhere into the distance. "It's..." "Yes, Amaterasu." Sasuke confirmed Naruto's guess, causing the blonde to shrug his shoulders and Hinata to turn pale. "It's creepy." Naruto expressed his opinion about the technique. "What can you do?" was all Sasuke could answer, shrugging his shoulders. "Team, how much stronger do you think she is than Madara?" Naruto asked his friend. "A lot, otherwise she wouldn't have been sealed in this tree." Sasuke answered him, looking around the huge tree. "Oh, today is definitely a day of problems," Naruto grumbled, dispersing the fox's chakra throughout the SCC. "I agree," Sasuke replied. "Exactly," Hinata agreed. "So, team number 7, shall we kick another weirdo's ass?" Naruto asked his friends, to which Sasuke only sighed sadly, and Hinata smiled slightly. After several tens of minutes of battle, "That's it, half-goddess, you're defeated," Naruto said tiredly but happily, not noticing how a hole less than a millimeter wide appeared in space behind him, and a black ball flew out of it, which was impossible to notice due to its insignificant size, and when there were less than 10 meters left to the blonde, Hinata suddenly pushed him away. "Hina, what are you doing, ing?" When he noticed that a black web was rapidly spreading across the girl's stomach, it was already too late. "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun," the girl said with a sad smile, realizing what awaited her in the next few seconds. "Why?" was all the blonde could say. More than one person close to him was dying, leaving him alone in this damned world. "Because I..." Before she could finish speaking, the girl's body was completely covered in impenetrable darkness, which seemed to attract the light, and after a couple of seconds it crumbled as if it consisted of black sand. Naruto continued to sit on his knees where the one who had just died had given him warmth and care in the village that hated and feared him, simply because he existed, the one who had never looked at him with fear in her eyes, like the same Jiraiya and Tsunade, although they hid it well from everyone. "RRR, you naughty girl with your Byakugan," Kagaya's voice growled behind Naruto. "You're right, boy, I'm not yet able to call myself a full-fledged goddess, but I assure you, soon you will know my full power and then I..." "No," Naruto interrupted her. "I will destroy you at any cost." As Naruto began to rapidly form seals, the rabbit goddess's eyes filled with primal fear. "Stop, you wouldn't dare." "The seal of the god of death." Those were the last words before Naruto's consciousness went dark. End of memories. Yudo, Naruto! He woke up from someone shaking his shoulder and saying his name. When he looked at the disturber of his peace, he saw the one he lost through his own fault, the one he couldn't protect. "Hina?" Naruto asked with a tremor in his voice, but as soon as he blinked, he realized that he was wrong. "Hina? Who is that?" Xiao Ning was taken aback by his question. "Friend," Naruto said dejectedly and changing the subject asked. "Did you want something?" "Huh? Yes, why did you call me here?" Xiao Ning asked, sitting back down in her seat. Why would a guy bring a girl into a room and put a barrier on that same room that doesn't let in sounds?" Naruto asked Xiao Ning in a quiet, ingratiating voice. She immediately finished his sentence and turned pale. That's right. To talk about the sacred family. His words made the girl's eyes go unfocused for a couple of seconds, which made Naruto momentarily afraid that he had gone too far with the joke. Naruto. Xiaoning growled his name, causing a herd of goosebumps to run down the blonde's spine, and his butt to signal approaching trouble. Joke, Naruto said, dodging the thrown pillow and putting his hands in front of him, asking the girl to stop. Why are you so mad? Asked the blonde, waiting for the girl to cool down. What a stupid joke, Xiaoning said without hearing his question. Let me think, the sacred family, one of the 3 main families of Sphitozer. I already managed to find out. Naruto interrupted her. Do you have a feud with this family? No, she answered too quickly. Then yes, Naruto said out loud. Believe me, I have a personal score to settle with them now, so if you have any problems with the sacred family, contact me, I'll help as much as I can. Oh okay, Xiaoning replied, her cheeks turning slightly red. Okay, the second issue on the agenda, Naruto said, interrupting the girl's thoughts. Namely, your training. Exactly. The girl remembered the guy's promise. You made a promise. And I will do it, the blonde answered confidently. Tomorrow at 6 at the place of our first meeting. So early? Xiaoning asked. What, are you chickening out already? Naruto asked mockingly. What do you mean? The girl proudly raised her nose. Well, tomorrow you'll curse me, believe me, Naruto said mockingly. Well, since we've sorted everything out, we can go listen to Nieli's lectures. Wait, he heard as he stood up from his chair. Can you teach me your shinobi techniques? I can, Naruto answered after thinking for a bit. We'll find out tomorrow what I can teach you, okay? Why yes, thank you, the girl answered, blushing. I propose a bet, the guy suddenly said, deactivating the barrier. Xiaoning looked at him with interest. What? If I can surprise you now, you'll show me Sphitozer, okay? Naruto said with a sly look in his eyes. It's coming, Xiaoning said cheerfully. Kagebunshin no jutsu, the guy said, crossing his fingers. There was a poof sound and an exact copy of Naruto appeared next to him. Naruto looked at him with bewilderment, and the next second he lost consciousness. Naruto! The girl exclaimed and rushed to the guy's aid. So I'll help him, said his copy. And you called the red-haired one. Why you can talk? She asked in surprise. And also sing, dance, and so on according to the instructions. The clone mimicked her, checking the condition of the original. Are you still here? I'm running already, Xiaoning said and ran to the door. When Xiaoning ran out of the room, it only took the clone a few minutes to figure out the reason for the original's fainting spell. And the result surprised him: fatigue. After leaving a note, he disappeared with the help of the Horatian. Naruto POV. Where am I? Was the first thing I said when I woke up on the stone floor. What's going on? When I got up and started looking around, I noticed one thing that made me very wary. The whole environment was very similar to my subconscious labyrinth, only there was no water that imitated my chakra. So I'm starting to dislike this more and more, I drawled, trying to gather my thoughts. Which wasn't working out very well. If this really is my subconscious, then I urgently need to find a guardian so that he can explain everything. With this sad thought, I headed to the chambers of my friend Kurama. Oh, Ku, how I miss you, my friend, Naruto thought sadly, remembering the old days with his red-haired friend. Flashback. Come on, Fox, please, just once, honestly. A 6-year-old child with wheat-colored hair and surprisingly bright sky-colored eyes stood in front of the giant fox with 9 tails. No, Naruto, you can't. The fox was adamant in his intentions. Don't even hope. With these words, he folded his front paws into a cross and laid his head on them. Come on, just once, please. Naruto, tell me, why do you need this? The fox couldn't resist and looked at the boy with a skeptical look, trying to understand whether his new vessel had an instinct for self-preservation or not. Well, I want to surpass my father, and to do that I need to train from childhood, otherwise I won't become the strongest shinobi. The blonde answered him as if it were self-evident. Oh, but in public you behave like an idiot, the fox muttered tiredly, which, given his size, came out very loudly. So remember how many bookmarks there were when we first met? Naruto reminded him of their first meeting, causing the fox's left ear to twitch and his tails to flap all over the cage, demonstrating how furious he was. And they still call me a demon. The fox growled as he felt someone scratching him behind the ear. Rrrrrr. If anyone found themselves in the subconscious of the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox demon, they would go crazy from the surrealism of the picture. The most insane, fierce, strong, etc. demon purred like a cat from the fact that a 6-year-old child was scratching him behind the ear. So, will you help? Naruto asked after a few minutes of silence. Oh, I'm tired of it, I'll help you. The fox resigned himself to the inevitable fate of being the teacher of the reckless, half-baked shinobi larva. Hooray! Naruto shouted, causing the fox to wince. Problematic, the nine-tailed thought, but said something else out loud. Okay, tomorrow we start training, so I advise you to get some sleep, because I am a strict teacher, Naruto. Okay, fox. The boy agreed, and just as the fox was about to drive him out of his subconscious to rest, he asked, What's your name? Why do you need this? The fox was surprised by the boy's unexpected question. Well, you are inside me, which means we will communicate often and constantly saying, Fox-sensei or Fox-sen. Is inconvenient, but I heard that you always have to introduce yourself to your friends first. The blonde answered embarrassedly, realizing that for a whole month he had only addressed the nine-tailed as Fox. Kurama, but Yoko. Kurama said slightly slowly, but Naruto didn't notice. And I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the future Hokage. Naruto answered him happily. As you say, Hokage, Kurama said with a strange intonation, driving his jailer out of his subconscious. Hokage, huh? Kurama said into the void. Maybe it's not a bad idea to become friends with the kid. After these words, the strongest of the tailed beasts plunged into memories of those times when his strength had not yet driven him crazy, and he had friends, and people worshipped him as a great spirit, and enemies trembled at the mere mention of his name. Why not? The fox made his final decision, falling asleep in his prisoner with a smile on his face. Become a friend. Heh, who would have thought that a demon could become friends with a real demon? Naruto thought as he walked down a corridor that seemed to have no end. But Ku was right, you can't give up, because even if you're eaten, there are two ways out. A simple joke made Naruto's face smile, which showed the surrounding space. Look at you, it's not my whining. After 10 minutes of walking I came out to the guard, and in those 10 minutes I was able to formulate several basic questions, the answers to which I planned my further stay in Sphitozer from. Hey, hi, here I am, I greeted the guard with a cheerful smile. How are you? I have a few questions, will you answer them? You again, we saw each other not long ago, the guard said, opening one eye, ignoring my remarks. Just hurry up, I have some urgent matters concerning you. Okay, what happened to me? Without pulling the Biju's tail, he got straight to the point. In response to my question, the guard sank into thought, and I was in no hurry to distract him, having learned from bitter experience with Kurama. He could also sink into thought, and it was better not to distract him, otherwise he could say something that even Haiden would not hesitate to write down a couple of phrases. Overwork, the guard said after a few minutes of silence. What fatigue? I am a half-blooded Uzumaki, a former Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed, the most powerful Biju, and I have mastered Senjutsu. So I definitely couldn't be overtired from one clone, I said, choking, realizing the heights I had reached in the old world. Well, it turns out I'm quite the monster, I thought, remembering my short but eventful life. But I already consider this world my own, I wonder why. I don't remember if I told you, but I'll repeat it every time. The restructuring of the organism from full physical to semi-material one. Constant load on the SCCH due to the change of world 2. Transformation of the soul 3. Understood? Said the guard, without opening his eyes. I remember you said something about the load on the SCCH and the transformation of the soul, but what kind of restructuring of the body? Will I become like the snake? I didn't understand him. BRRR. No, you won't become like Orochimaru, you will become a kitsune, because your soul will transform into a kitsune's soul, but not a purebred or half-breed, but a semi-material one. That is, your life expectancy will increase, strength, reflexes, and so on down the list. As far as I remember from the books I read, kitsune are fox demons that live by absorbing the life energy of people or their organs. I don't want to become a demon, he suddenly yelled both to the guard and to himself. Oh, sorry, I just lost it. It all depends on you, Naruto, whether you become a monster or a guardian spirit, the guard said, not noticing my scream. Guardian spirit? He asked again. What does that mean? I'll explain later. This fox refused to explain. Okay, Cammy be with you, I said irritably. Thanks for the answers, I'm going. After these words, I concentrated to get out of the subconscious, but I couldn't. What the? I exclaimed, causing the guard to open one eye. Ahem, sorry, but I can't get out of the subconscious. Yes? It's a bit early, the guard said in surprise. Didn't understand. Because your body began to change, it affected your subconscious, which began to rebuild itself into an inner world, the guard answered me. And you need to control the changes, otherwise I'm afraid to even imagine what problems could cause if your inner world begins to collapse. Rebuild into the inner world? And what is the difference between the subconscious and the inner world? I decided to ask, just in case. The subconscious is mostly found in people and those like them. The inner world is the property of spiritually developed intelligent beings who were able to overcome a certain level in the development of their soul. And unlike the subconscious, the inner world will remain with you forever. So carefully monitor the creation of your world. If you can live long enough, then your inner world will be transformed into a domain. But I will tell you about it later, after the transformation of the soul is complete, not earlier, said the guard, seeing my questioning look. Okay, I agreed, raising my hands in front of me. But you'll definitely tell me. We will be together for a long time, boy, said the guard and went to bed. Oh, to work a lot again, I said, turning away from the fox. Cammy, Shikamaru, I think I'm starting to understand you. End of POV. POV Guardian. For several centuries the Ancient One has not sent me to recruit new guards, and then suddenly she sent me. But not as a great spirit mentor, but as some prisoner. Nonsense. But that's nothing. When I appeared in my dungeon, the first thing that surprised me was the water. There was simply a huge amount of it, but there was something wrong with it, and when I decided to check the dungeon for spiritual energy, I fell into a stupor. Spiritual energy, water spiritual energy. Yes, how much of it must be for it to be compressed and become water? A monster, the owner of this power is a monster, or a god, at least a junior. The first meeting went quite normally. It was immediately obvious that he didn't know who I was, but I liked his reaction. Most often, the intelligent ones trembled and fawned, but this one wanted to attack, which with his powers could be successful and cause trouble. Well, that would be problematic. And so, we met again. We began to see each other too often, although this is even good, but the very reason for the meeting alarmed me, especially after he said that he could not leave the subconscious. He is progressing quickly, and the transformation of the soul occurs in rapid leaps, no matter how this affects his mind, so due to an oversight, all his senses became more acute and became like those of purebred kitsune, but I managed to correct the mistake, because he could go crazy from the information shock that his new senses would cause. Ah, what a problem student, just like Kurama. I wonder how he is doing? 3 days after Naruto lost consciousness. Naruto slowly opened his eyes. It was obvious that it was not easy for him. When he fully opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was an unfamiliar ceiling. Yeah, I should have asked the guard how much time had passed in reality, but it felt like I'd been lying in the same position for several days, and an uncomfortable one at that. Naruto thought, collecting his thoughts, Exo, how my whole body hurts. Okay, I'll deal with this later. First of all, where am I? And secondly, where are my clothes? Throwing off the blanket, he sat up on the bed. As soon as he stopped swaying, he began to scan the room he found himself in, and then the entire building. 2 people in the next rooms, 2 are heading in my direction, Naruto thought as soon as he finished scanning. Exo, my body hurts so much. Did they kick me while I was unconscious? Okay, I'll run my chakra for now. That should at least relieve the pain a little. 10 seconds later, Naruto began to feel the pain slowly recede, and the pallor on his hands disappeared, but his entire body began to take on a more presentable appearance. Well, otherwise his skin color was exactly like Orochimaru. A joyful thought flashed through his mind, but was immediately swept away by another. So now there's a problem with the guests. Getting out of bed, he walked silently to the door, attached himself to the wall with chakra and rose to the ceiling, standing parallel to the floor, but so that the door was visible. So when will he wake up? A female voice asked as the door opened. I don't know, the man answered him. Damn! Where did Naruto go? At that moment Naruto peeled himself off the ceiling, falling silently behind the girl, grabbed her in a chokehold, but immediately received an elbow to the liver. Not expecting this, and as luck would have it, the pain decided to remind itself, Naruto let go of the girl, and she turned to face him. Naruto? Xiaoninger exclaimed. Oh, here's the missing patient. Nieli was inexplicably happy. Sorry, Naruto said, holding his aching side. I was just shocked, I thought I was kidnapped. The next moment, Xiaoninger's face turned red, and the girl herself turned away, covering her face with her hands. Xiaoning, what's wrong? Naruto didn't understand the girl's actions, and then looked at Nieli, and then at himself. Oops, that was awkward. The blonde smiled awkwardly. If someone were to walk into the room now, they would see a rather strange picture. Two guys, one in only boxers, and a girl who has turned away from the naked, red-faced one, standing between them. Yeah, was all Nieli said, scratching the back of his head. They didn't even take your clothes. A moment after his words, there was a pop and Naruto appeared in the room, dressed as Naruto. Catch, was all the clothed man said to the naked man, throwing the scroll. Clothes and medicines that I could get, and now get ready to catch a packet of information. With these words, a poof was heard and the dressed man disappeared, leaving behind a small cloud of smoke. Naruto, please get dressed, Xiaoninger squeaked with her face covered. Oh, sorry, right now. He quickly began to dress and half a minute later he was fully dressed. That's it, I'm ready. When the girl turned around, she found a blonde man smiling carefreely with all 32 teeth. Okay, since the clothes issue is resolved, the next one on the list is where am I? Naruto said seriously, stopping smiling and looking from the girl to the guy, which clearly surprised and confused him. When we came to help you, we only found this note. Nieli continued his explanation, taking a small piece of paper out of the spatial ring and handing it to Naruto. It said that you were simply overtired, but I checked just in case and only found overtired, as it was written in the note. Then the guys and I moved to my room, by the way, they are now in the neighboring rooms, I don't know how, but no one noticed us. Only you lay unconscious for 3 days, which is why we began to worry, especially Xiaoning. After these words, Naruto looked at the girl with gratitude, which made her embarrassed and look away. I see, so I was unconscious for 3 days. This is not good, very bad, Naruto said thoughtfully, his gaze unfocused. Yes. Okay, since you've come to your senses, Xiaoning will help you, and I'll run to the library on business, Nieli quickly said and left the room, not giving Naruto a chance to say anything. Was all Naruto said before his stomach made a growling sound. Can we go get something to eat? I haven't eaten anything in 3 days. He smiled, looking into Xiaoninger's eyes. Only you pay, Xiaoning replied with a sly look in her eyes. Okay, then let's meet in an hour near the entrance to the academy. Okay, the girl agreed and left the room. And Naruto remained in the room, and when the girl left the building, and Du Jie and Lu Piao left after Nieli, he sat on the bed and began to drive chakra in large quantities through the SCC in order to quickly warm up the body after 3 days of unconsciousness. An hour later, near the entrance to the Sacred Orchid Academy stood a 16 to 17-year-old blonde man in discreet, but obviously expensive clothes. Leaning against the wall, he looked at the stream of students leaving the academy, thinking for a bit. Naruto almost missed the arrival of Xiaoning. She was dressed in obviously expensive clothes, even more expensive than Naruto's. Whistle, we're just going to get a bite to eat, Naruto whistled, peeling himself off the wall and walking towards the girl. He thought, Biju, the outfit is almost like Hina's, even the colors are similar, and I invited the guys back then to celebrate our first C rank mission, which became an A rank. So what? Xiaoning asked, looking menacingly at the blonde, which sent shivers down his spine. Exo, add the Byakugan and a bluish tint to your hair, You're just like Hina when she's angry, Naruto thought, smiling awkwardly, and replied, "It suits you." The girl's cheeks slightly blushed from the guy's praise, but Naruto was already looking somewhere to the side. Looking in the same direction, she noticed Nieli and the others. "Maybe we should call?" Naruto asked, not understanding why. "No need," Xiao Ning replied with a hint of displeasure. "They're probably going to the library to study." "Yes? Too bad, then lead the way, Captain." The blonde man smiled playfully and bowed playfully, to which Xiao Ning only sighed sadly and walked towards a good cafe. -20 minutes later. "Itadakimasu," Naruto said before he started to destroy the ramen, causing him to catch the girl's interested gaze. "Habit, enjoy your meal." "And you too," Xiao Ning replied, embarrassed. As Naruto finished eating his 7th serving and Xiao Ning finished her dessert, a noisy group of 5 guys and 3 girls entered the cafe. "Bijou, haven't they been taught any manners?" Naruto thought wearily, watching as this group headed towards their table. "Oh, now someone is going to get beaten, maybe even kicked," Naruto muttered quietly, but Xiao Ning heard him and looked at him in bewilderment, and Naruto simply pointed his gaze at the approaching trio of guys. "Naruto, what's wrong?" Xiao Ning asked, and a second later she felt the guys approaching. "It seems like today is my day." Only a deaf person would not hear the sarcasm in Naruto's phrase. After a couple of seconds, the girl realized why she was frowning. "Yes, apparently, and it's just your day," the girl said with an incomprehensible intonation. "Just don't destroy the cafe, they make delicious pancakes here." "As your highness wishes." The blonde grinned stupidly, and 3 guys approached the table. "Boy, we want your girlfriend to join us," said the 19-year-old boy, looking lustfully at Xiao Ning, who, judging by the smell, had clearly had too much of something strong. "You won't leave me alone if it's nice, right?" Naruto said somewhat resignedly, seeing the fire of rage burning in the girl's eyes. "Do you even know who I am?" The guy scowled, and his companions smiled, anticipating the entertaining spectacle of the blonde getting scared and begging their leader for mercy. "A moron who wasn't taught any manners as a child," Naruto said, losing interest in his interlocutor, which made his eyes turn red and a Ki walk through the cafe, but the blonde didn't pay attention to it, unlike the same Xiao Ning, who turned slightly pale. "You're dead." With these words the leader of the 3 rushed at Naruto, who only grinned mockingly. For the next couple of minutes, everyone in the cafe could watch the fight between Naruto and the 5 guys, and if all the visitors to the cafe could only sympathize with the blonde at the beginning of the fight, then the end of the fight surprised them quite a bit, especially the fact that the cafe itself, by a mythical miracle, was almost not damaged, which cannot be said about the guys. 2 broken arms, 3 broken noses, 4 head injuries of varying severity, and a bunch of different bruises and abrasions. I thought they would be stronger," Naruto said into the void, looking at the bodies of his defeated opponents. "Well, I wouldn't say so." A sudden answer came from behind him. 5 demon summoners from 2 to 4 stars of silver rank, and indoors at that, to defeat them in such a way that the cafe wasn't damaged. "Well done, boy." Turning around, Naruto saw a man of about 45 to 50 years old, who was not dressed flashily, but clearly with taste. The man looked at him with brown eyes calmly, as if a war veteran was watching the training of genin and wanted to save young shinobi, but understood that little depended on him, because everyone builds their own destiny. Naruto rarely met such a look, and from this look he felt like a brat again, who imagined himself an invincible ninja. "Excuse me, but who are you?" Naruto asked, the look in his brown eyes, the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed demon fox, sending a chill down his spine. "Oh right, where are my manners, Li Wang, and I am the owner of this cafe," Li Wang smiled. "And what is your name, young man?" "Oh, that's right, Naruto Namikaze." Naruto smiled stupidly and scratched the back of his head. "Well, nice to meet you, Naruto. Be so kind as to get rid of the bodies so that they don't bother the customers, and I'll give you a discount," Li Wang said, turned around and went somewhere deep into the cafe. Naruto created 5 clones and then walked towards the table where Xiao Ning was sitting. "Strange guy," Naruto said, sitting down at the table. "The guy who started a brawl in a cafe and then created 5 clones that carried the bodies of the victims to an unknown location said it." Xiao Ning answered him in the same tone. "Well, what can I say, oops?" Naruto smiled back, causing Xiaoning's cheeks to blush. Okay, have you eaten? Receiving an affirmative nod, he continued. Let's go get some fresh air then, shall we? After paying for the meal, they went outside and walked towards the Long family residence. On the way to the residence, Naruto did nothing but chatter nonstop on all sorts of different topics. When there were 5 minutes left to walk to the residence, Naruto switched to a serious topic for the girl. Okay, enough of this empty talk since I woke up. Tomorrow after classes your training will begin, at the place of our first meeting, only I don't know what kind of teacher I am, so be prepared for anything, okay? Naruto asked the girl. Okay, Xiaoning replied. Thank you. Forget it. Naruto waved it off. It's not hard for me to help a friend if he needs help. Well, okay, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Xiaoning said goodbye and entered the courtyard of the residence. Walking along the streets of Svitozar, Naruto couldn't help but compare Svitozar and Konoha. In Konoha, he couldn't even calmly go to the store for groceries because they were constantly trying to either cheat him or beat him up. In theory, he should have blamed Kurama for everything, because it was because of the fox that the whole village hated him, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get angry at his first friend. He could get offended, quarrel with him over nonsense, but he couldn't get angry. When he asked him this question, he simply shrugged and said, It's impossible to get angry at a friend no matter how hard you try. That's what my asshole and first friend told me. But I was able to understand this only after 600 years. Or somewhere like that, I'm not sure. It's nicer here, Naruto thought. Probably because here they don't look at me like a monster. It's a pity Sasuke, Hina and Kakashi-sensei aren't here. I hope their souls have rested, especially Hina's. After wandering around the city for a couple more hours, he went to the site of the future training ground, where he would train Xiaoning, because he needed to help her deal with the sacred family, but not do all the work himself, but teach her to fight, otherwise there would be no point in helping. So he was raised by Hatake Kakashi, one of the strongest in Konohagura, but Sato, the man who replaced his father. This will be interesting. Naruto smiled, entering the alley, and disappeared with the help of the Hiraishin. A week later. Come on, Xiaoning, there are only 3 laps left. The blonde encouraged the girl, watching her, with 10 kilograms weights, try to run the remaining 3 laps. After running the last few meters, Xiaoning fell to the ground, exhausted, right where she stopped. Walking up to the heavily breathing girl, the guy picked her up in his arms as if she weighed nothing at all, and carried her into the shade of the trees. Well done, rest for an hour, and then we'll do some meditation, Naruto said, putting the girl on the blanket that he had specially brought here after the first day of training, because although he was used to resting on the ground, Xiaoning clearly had a different opinion on this matter. But it hasn't been a month yet, Xiaoning objected, settling herself more comfortably on the blanket. You have quite a strong regeneration, which is why your spiritual vessel was restored earlier, Naruto answered her, and mentally added. And you also have an underdeveloped SEC, which the residents of Svitozar do not have, even Yeli, considering that your aura and his stand out very strongly. I have to figure this out. Flashback. Naruto, since your transformation is in its final stages, you will have to master new demon abilities, such as aura vision, the guard said, looking at the blonde with an unreadable gaze, which made him not even want to comment on the fact that he did not want to have anything to do with demons. Okay, I'm almost done with forming the inner world anyway, Naruto agreed, realizing that he wasn't really given much of a choice. Concentrate some demonic chakra in your eyes, the fox said after a couple of minutes of playing. Destroy one blonde with your gaze. Having done everything as the guardian ordered, Naruto was able to demonstrate his aura gaze, as the blonde called this ability to himself. 5 hours later. Approaching a small mirror, he noticed that instead of blue, his iris was now bright orange. And his pupil was elongated. And what does this give me? Naruto asked, having looked at his eyes to his heart's content. You can find possessed people. These are people whose bodies have been taken over by all sorts of demonic scum. The guard spat out the last 2 words, explaining the essence of the ability. You can also find immigrants who, for various reasons, have retained their memory of a past or past lives. Believe me, sometimes this helps a lot. Okay, that's not all I got, is it? Naruto asked with a sigh, realizing that he was definitely not human anymore. Yes, now let's move on to other abilities. And... okay. Xiao Ning agreed after a minute of thought. Do you have any recommendations on meditation? Or should I look for a new technique myself? Naruto thought, remembering what from the notes given to Hagoromo might suit the girl. First, we need to determine your attribute and form, but before that, we can see the records of the technique that put you in danger. Naruto asked, trying not to look into Xiao Ning's eyes. Kami, why does she look so much like Hinata? For what? Why? Naruto mentally howled, taking the scroll from the girl's hands, causing them to touch, which caused a blush on the girl's face. Why are you so blushing? Are you embarrassed? She must have forgotten about the kiss. It's probably for the best. Naruto was dumbfounded when he started reading the technique that Xiao Ning had passed on. He had expected anything, but such a bad technique, and even from the heiress of the family, even if she was the youngest. He suddenly wanted to shake the necks of some old men, preferably until their cervical vertebrae cracked. Well, if this is one of the best techniques of one of the most influential noble families, then Sfitozu will fall, in about 50 to 60 years, Naruto muttered, but Xiao Ning heard him, which made her want to start getting indignant, but Naruto continued. Okay, better late than never, not everything is lost yet, but there is a lot to catch up on, and that is not good. Maybe we should arrange training in the style of the power of youth? I'll have to think about it. Ning-chan, do you have a spiritual crystal that has never been used? Why yes. Xiao Ning replied, changing her mind about starting to get indignant, and taking 3 pieces out of the spatial ring. Why do you need them? I only need one, feed it spiritual power. Naruto said, putting the scroll aside, and then give it to me. After doing everything as Naruto said, Xiao Ning handed the crystal to Naruto. Taking Xiao Ning's crystal, Naruto began to study it. After a minute of deathly silence, Naruto's surprised voice was heard. Spiritual power 76 points. Lightning Wind attribute. Soul form, Winged Dragon, if I understood everything correctly. Well done, for your age it's quite a good result. Naruto's words made the girl's chest warm and her cheeks turn red. There are 2 pieces of news, good and very good. The blonde continued in the meantime. Which one should you start with? Let's start with the good stuff. Can you explain right away what it means? The blonde's positivity began to be transmitted to the girl, which made her smile slightly. Well, attribute means attribute. Lightning wind, as I understand it, it's some kind of element, and I have a suitable development technique for you. That's the good news. The blonde began to explain, simultaneously taking out a clean scroll and a simple pencil from the spatial ring. What other attributes are there? Xiao Ning couldn't resist asking. I can't say for sure, but I know for sure that there is fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, snow. The blonde answered without stopping writing the technique on the scroll. But I don't know the exact number, you have to go to the red-haired one. And the winged dragon? Winged dragon is a form of soul that occurs in 1 in a million. Thanks to this form of soul the general development is quite good, which can explain your increased regeneration. Here you go. Having finished writing something in the scroll, Naruto handed it to the girl. Here is the technique itself and some useful information for you. The blonde said, laughing awkwardly, but not looking at the girl. Thank you, Xiao Ning said quietly. Forget it, the blonde waved it off. It's not a pity for friends. You better start meditating, because I heard you have an exam in a little over a month. I wouldn't want you to be behind. The girl only nodded. Sitting more comfortably, she began to meditate with the help of the technique that Naruto gave her. As soon as she said the activation words, she immediately felt the difference between the techniques that the elders of the family and Naruto gave her. If during meditation with the help of the already old technique she felt the cold that slowly and inevitably spread throughout her body, then from the blonde's technique there were tingling sensations throughout her body. But there was no pain from them, on the contrary, it was even a little ticklish, as if ants were running around her body. Naruto sat not far from the girl and watched as she began to meditate. Watching Xiao Ning for the last week, both in training and just in communication, he noticed a strong resemblance to Hinata, very strong, because of which he could not simply abandon her, leaving the training to the clones. Even after their first meeting in the clearing, he was drawn to her like a magnet. But in addition to the similarities between Xiao Ning and Hinata, there were also significant differences. and not only in appearance. If Hinata was quiet and timid in communication, then Xiao Ning felt confident, making it clear that she was not going to put up with fate and would fight to the end. This is what attracted Naruto to Xiao Ning. He was interested in what the girl could achieve with his help, what heights she would reach if he showed her the way. The road will be mastered by the one who walks it, yes, Kakashi-sensei, the blonde said sadly, remembering his mentor, without whose help he would not have survived in the harsh world of shinobi. Having decided not to waste time either, Naruto plunged into his inner world. Finding himself in a small clearing, around which grew an impenetrable forest, he confidently walked towards where the guard was. After 5 minutes of walking through the forest, he found himself in another clearing, but much larger than the one he found himself in. As soon as he passed the border dividing the forest and the clearing, the guard immediately noticed him, opening one eye. "Why did you come?" "To chat." The blonde grinned, approaching the guard. "Chat?" the fox asked, puzzled. "You are the first one who decided to chat and not gain new knowledge. It's strange." "I know, that's why Kurama called me an unpredictable vessel," the blonde smiled, remembering his teacher and first friend. "Is it that the first association you all have with the one who came to you is strength, knowledge, power? It takes a few thousand years to develop a habit." The fox grinned in response. "And who is Kurama?" "Kurama no Yoko, or the nine-tailed fox demon. Before my death, he was imprisoned within me," the blonde answered. "Why?" "My previous student's name was Kurama, but Yoko. I didn't expect that he could develop to a 9 so quickly." The fox smiled, although his smile looked more like a grin, but Naruto had already gotten used to the fact that his fox neighbors could only smile like that. "Are we talking about the same Kurama? I just don't think that Biju can be the disciples of spirits," Naruto said doubtfully. "What do you know about the so-called Biju?" the fox said, looking at his interlocutor with interest. "Well," the blonde drawled, "these are animals that consist of chakra, so even after death they are reborn. Contrary to popular belief, they are intelligent, have feelings, are divided into one-tailed and nine-tailed, although according to legend, Rikudo Sennin was the Jinchuriki of the 10-tailed. Well, they have been living for more than 1,000 years. So you know almost nothing about Biju," the fox summed up. "What can I say? It's bad, Naruto. I expected more." "Well, it's not my fault," the blonde responded, feigning offense. "Kurama rarely talked about the Biju, mostly it was funny stories about their relationship. And people themselves are so afraid of the Biju that just the mention of them makes them tremble." "People, what can you expect from them?" the fox grinned. "Okay, listen, I have a couple of stories about the nine-tailed demon fox, who was a clueless young demon. I remember once, we went hunting. Part 6. Commentary on Part 6. Experiments with text design continue. Chapter 6. Naruto went into the library where Nyeli and his friends were hiding to find out what to do next with the purple smoke herb that he bought with all of his remaining 90,000 Yelingbi, and asked Xiao Ning to buy the remaining herb, which, according to her, came to an additional 60,000 plus, and as the blonde himself understood, this was quite a solid amount, but he decided to trust the red-haired man. "I wish to join your team. I wonder how magnanimous Jinlinqian is?" The blonde heard a familiar voice as soon as he entered the hall where Nyeli and the others were supposed to be. Is Nyeli planning some kind of adventure? Naruto thought as he stopped 7 meters behind Nyeli and leaned on the scroll rack. The guy Nyeli was addressing raised his head and looked at Nyeli. After thinking for a moment, he asked with obvious reluctance on his face. "Who are you? Do you understand where we're going?" And then he saw, in addition to Nyeli and Naruto, that he was looking at Nyeli and then at him with interest. "Didn't they teach you that you can't eavesdrop on other people's conversations?" I'm keeping an eye on the redhead, otherwise he'll run into trouble again," the blonde said in an indifferent tone, parodying the Uchiha, casting a fleeting glance at Chen's entire group. "Oh, so you decided to work as my bodyguard?" Nyeli turned to the blonde and smiled. "More like a nanny," Naruto answered in the same tone, mirroring his smile. "Guys, have you reached at least the beginning of the bronze rank? If not, then you have no business here, you will only make people laugh. In response to Lin Qian's words, he was pressed down so much that he even forgot how to breathe, and only after a couple of seconds he was released. But to Lin Qian's surprise, the blonde did not change his pose, not even by a millimeter, but only smiled slightly. "Not bad guy, what rank if it's not a secret?" Lin Qian asked, looking at the blonde. "Gold 4th," Naruto answered casually, and after a few seconds he smiled awkwardly, seeing the shock on the faces of the guys who were in Lin Qian's group. The entire group behind Lin Qian instantly fell silent. It's not every day you see a 16 to 17-year-old gold rank guy, let alone a 4th star. Ahem, I believe I don't have much time left. Okay, you're coming, but what about you? I'm only going if he's going, Naruto interrupted, pointing his gaze at Nieli. Boy, do you know who you're talking to? Someone shouted from the crowd behind Lin Qian. Pfft, was all the blonde replied. I don't care. Lin Qian himself thought about it. He didn't want to lose the golden 4th, since anything could happen during the expedition, but he also didn't want to take the dead weight of the red-haired one. The decision came suddenly. You're Nieli, right? Chen asked, turning to the red-haired boy. Rumors say that you've read the language of the ancient era, is that true? That's right, I've read everything that could be found in the library. Nieli nodded slightly in confirmation, radiating his confidence. Haha, such a confident intonation. Someone laughed behind Chen's back. You haven't even matured yet, and you already dare to say that you've read all the ancient books in the library. Ridiculous. Even if you started reading them from your mother's womb, you still wouldn't be able to master them all, said the guy who was next to Lin Qian. The people standing on Nieli's sides began to laugh. This Nieli is really an interesting guy. Lin Qian did not doubt Nieli's words that he said with such pride, and gently tapped the table with his fingers as he said, Since you have read so many ancient books, then you know what era the ancient city of Orchid belongs to. Considering the information we've already found about the city, which includes the round type of buildings in the ancient Orchid city itself, as well as the fact that the city itself is built in a square shape, there are only 2 possible eras that can be attributed to it. These are the Blizzard Empire and the Holy Empire. However, there's one more thing, the murals found there that are painted in the shape of a lotus. They were popular during the late era of the Holy Empire. Therefore, I'm sure that the approximate time of its existence is between the end of the Holy Empire era and the beginning of the Dark Age. Nieli's intonation of pronunciation was neither fast nor rude. He clearly and utterly explained everything about the ancient ruins of Orchid City. Hearing such an unexpected speech from Nieli, the subordinates surrounding Chen were dumbfounded. They only understood half of what was said, but Naruto was curious about what could have interested Nieli in the ruins, that he intended to go there without gaining strength. Wow, Nieli is no slouch. You have to be able to put these idiots down. Naruto's surprise knew no bounds. It's one thing when you were given a lot of information to read about this group of worlds, and God gave it to you to read, but it's another thing when you meet a no less educated person who clearly earned those crumbs of information that he now possesses through his own labor. And because of this, Naruto began to respect Nieli a little more than the others. Okay. Lin Qian suddenly stood up. He never expected that Nieli would be able to determine the origin of these ancient ruins so easily. Although his knowledge may seem simple, some historians in Glory City were unable to do even this. Their knowledge was not so deep. He looked at Nieli with admiring eyes. From now on, follow me. I will take care of your training and provide you with any materials for study. How do you like that? Lin Qian's subordinates were very surprised and did not expect that the young master would value Nieli so much. In response, Nieli only laughed and said, I think it's better for us to just cooperate in this case. No one knows the structure of the ruins of the ancient Orchid City better than me. If we find a treasure, please allow me to choose just one item, that's enough for me. If you don't allow me to do that, I'll have to go there alone. You're not even bronze rank yet, and you dare to make conditions to our young master Chen? The crowd shouted angrily. Will you choose one subject? Who do you think it is? The other shouted, agreeing with the first. Lin Qian looked at Nieli. The latter's entire appearance exuded confidence, which made Chen's heart doubtful. Nieli hadn't even reached the bronze rank, so where did he get such confidence from? I guarantee that you will definitely not be left with anything. There will be treasures if you accept my conditions. Nieli said proudly. He obviously knows something about this city and treasures since he allows himself to be so confident. Naruto thought, watching the entire conversation from the side, but in the event of a threat to Nieli, he was ready for anything. Lin Qian took out a part of the map of the ancient Orchid City ruins, but it was incomplete. He was silent for a moment, and soon thought that Nieli might have the remaining fragment. Okay, I agree to the deal. I repeat, if you become my leader, you will forget about all the problems. However, if you still do not want, I still believe that in the near future we will fruitfully cooperate. Chen laughed proudly. Chen's subordinates were even more surprised, because he agreed to this boy's conditions? I hope for our successful cooperation, Nieli said in a calm voice and turned back. 3 days. Let's meet here at 6 a.m. Lin Qian looked at Nieli's back. A playful smile appeared on his face. This guy, Nieli, is definitely an interesting guy, Lin Qian thought as he looked at Nieli's retreating back. Exploring the ruins of the ancient Orchid City? The blonde asked when they had moved a reasonable distance away from Lin Qian's group. It's quite dangerous, since you and your friends haven't reached bronze yet. Don't worry, I have a solution. Nieli waved it off. You know where these treasures are, right? Naruto didn't ask, but stated, and then asked a provocative question. Then why are you giving this guy a chance to take them for himself? I don't need them, Nieli answered, looking seriously at Naruto. And yes, I know where the treasures are, but I only need the lamp that should be among them. You're not going there alone, are you? Naruto decided to change the subject. Yes, Yiziyun and that bastard Shinshio should also go there. Nieli almost spat out the last name. Then how about we call Xiaoninger? Field training would be good for her, don't you think? Naruto suddenly asked Nieli as they approached the others. Oh, you have newcomers? Besides Duze and Lu Piao, Naruto noticed 3 guys, Xiaoninger, and another girl who had purple hair that reached the middle of her back, and was chatting sweetly with Xiaoninger. When the people noticed the guys approaching, all the conversations died down, and the guys stared at the approaching guys. Why are you so happy? Xiaoning was the first to ask, looking suspiciously at the blonde's satisfied face. Congratulations, in 3 days you will have a field trip. I don't know how long it will last, but no more than a month for sure. Naruto answered her, almost rubbing his hands in anticipation. Everyone else could only wonder how the Ice Princess could communicate so calmly with someone other than Yiziyun, and even without an icy tone and indifference. Field exit? Was all Xiaoninger asked him, and the blonde simply smiled and looked at Nieli, passing the rest of the conversation to him. Well, there's an expedition to the ancient Orchid City ruins in 3 days. Nieli explained to everyone as he looked at the girl. So, does anyone else want to go? Hey Yiziyun, what brings you here? No one except Xiaoninger had the desire, Lu Piao, or the ability, Du Jia and the others, to go. Naruto called Xiaoninger to follow him and headed for the exit. Once outside, he waited for the girl and then said, So, is this your first time going beyond the walls of Sphitozer? No, I was taken on short hikes before, why? Then you'll take the necessary things yourself, you're not a little girl anymore, the blonde answered her. By the way, are you aware of the price increase for purple smoke grass? Yes, that's why you asked me to buy it while it was cheap? Xiaoning was surprised by the guy's question, remembering the guy's strange request to buy herb that she thought was useless. Almost. The blonde evaded the answer, looking somewhere to the side. Nieli is to blame for raising the price. I'm just fulfilling his request. The girl was clearly not satisfied with his answer, but she had no desire to interrogate him right on the street, but she made herself a memo on how to get an answer. After the field trip, I'll return the entire amount that you spent at my request. The blonde decided to change the subject while the girl was deep in thought. I don't like being in debt, especially to beautiful girls. Xiaoning's face turned red from his compliment, while after a couple of minutes she was able to tidy herself up before anyone noticed them, and Naruto was looking somewhere with a thoughtful look the whole time. And no need. Xiaoning tried to object, but looking into the guy's eyes she realized that he couldn't be convinced. That's not why you called me here, right? In response, Naruto just smiled warmly and nodded. That's right, I need to go somewhere, so I'll be gone for 5 to 6 days, and the exit, as you remember, is in 3 days, so here, he handed the girl a kunai of an unusual shape. In addition to the main blade, there were 2 additional ones, which made the kunai look like a trident. With the help of this kunai, I can instantly move to you, so keep it with you at all times, even when you go to bed. Put it under your pillow, okay? Why such paranoia? Xiao Ning didn't argue with him, taking the kunai in her hands. Just a precaution. The blonde smiled slightly, looking into the girl's eyes. No more. Okay. Will there be training during the field trip? Xiao Ning decided to clarify, seeing that Naruto was about to leave somewhere, and was carefully not looking into his eyes the color of the summer sky. The blonde thought. Most likely not, maybe only meditation. I don't want anyone to know that I'm training you. Why? It was interesting to find out. The girl answered, having decided something for herself. The next day, having solved the problem with the grass, simply dumping 70% of Nia Li's reserves, and Naruto decided to save the rest of the reserves for a rainy day, and that such a day would come, the blonde was sure. Naruto went to a small wasteland, which he noticed 3 days after Xiao Ning began training. Since childhood, he had a habit of making caches for a rainy day, the hard life of a Jinchuriki affected. But the funniest thing is that it was thanks to this habit that he was able to survive, well, coupled with caution, observation, hiding it behind the image of a simple-minded guy. Having created a couple of dozen clones, he sent them to spy on the sacred family, naturally under the henge. It's convenient when those around you don't know anything about shinobi, especially about techniques, Naruto thought, looking at the wasteland where a second ago a horde of his clones had been. Without wasting time, the blonde moved with the help of the Hiraishin beyond Sfitozer. Finding himself in the forest, he first of all began to drive the demonic chakra through the SCC. A few seconds later, information from the enhanced senses flooded the blonde's head. The smell, the colors, the sound, all this became more intense, but Naruto managed. Feeling a burning sensation in the tailbone area, he was convinced a tail had appeared, which meant he touched the top of his head. The fox ears were in place. What? Decided to practice? The guard's voice sounded in his head. Yeah, Naruto answered mentally, moving towards the prey. I'm glad you decided not to run away from your essence. The guard's satisfied voice rang out. What's the point of running away from yourself? The blonde said mentally, without being distracted from his search. Well, you yourself were almost hysterical recently, screaming that you didn't want to be a demon. The guard chuckled, recalling the blonde's hysteria. Come on, it happens to everyone. The blonde winced, feeling the demon, like a gold-ranked minimum, next to him. Listen, guard, how long will the transformation continue to burn? The guard said, having stopped laughing. Half a year minimum, a year maximum, and then you will become a full-fledged kitsune. The fox said the last word proudly. The blonde sighed, seeing the huge snow monkey. And I hoped that she wouldn't notice. Well, the fox said philosophically. But there is a great opportunity to test your combat skills and the abilities that demonization gives. In response, Naruto only sighed, but did not argue, since the fox was right, the abilities needed to be tested. You're right in some ways, the blonde answered him. In something? The fox exclaimed in surprise in the blonde's head. Yeah, the blonde grinned, watching the monkey closely. Because I was planning to just get used to the new sensations first, and only then look for someone to test it on. But now I don't even know what to expect or fear. The fox chuckled at the blonde's tirade. There's some logic in your words, but my method is more interesting. And more dangerous. The blonde completed his words. The monkey, having sensed an unusual smell nearby, tensed up, but having noticed the man, only licked